Ashamed of yourself. You know, you are so bad. You're such a bad reporter. This is one after another. This family was wiped out. I'm just looking.
Can we get a response from President Ramaphosa?
Your reaction to those videos, Mr. President?
Yes, I want your reaction.
Well, I think it's...
So the issues that concern you as the United States...
Those are all recent. Those are all deaths.
Yeah, in many ways, I mean, one should say you are a partner of South Africa, and you are raising concerns, and these are concerns that we are willing to talk to you about. Let me just add quickly, you know, the criminality that we are experiencing in our country needs quite a lot of technological capability. And in one of our areas in South Africa, we're using US technology, which is able to, in many ways, identify where shootings are happening and all that. And I'd like to talk about that because there is support that we can get from you as the United States to help us deal with all these acts of criminality. And that is what I believe partnership is all about. And we are here as a partner so that we can help each other whenever there are challenges. So I'd like us to discuss it, and of course outside of the media, so that we sit down and have a really good discussion that will lead to good outcomes.
I view this trip and the treatment that President Ramaphosa received from the US government as a perfect example and a reminder to the African leaders that this is a new day, that this is a new game, that they need to re-strategize the manner in which diplomacy used to be handled. That game is over.
The recent South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa's meeting with Donald Trump is not a diplomatic win for South Africa or Africa. Black people, especially Black Africans, should be objective and not subjective when dealing with the reality. Please, subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you. Let's not lie to ourselves and let's not act like fools. There is nothing to be proud of and there is nothing to celebrate about the recent meeting between Donald Trump and Cyril Ramaphosa in the White House. Cyril Ramaphosa didn't only miss an opportunity to expose the United States and Europe for supporting apartheid in South Africa against Black Africans but also to raise the issue of systemic oppression, deprivation, and extermination of Black Americans in the United States. Black Africans who have at least common sense or can think for themselves should know that apartheid is still going on in South Africa. The only difference between apartheid in the old days and apartheid today in South Africa is that Europeans and Americans have managed to replace the white oppressors there with Black South Africans who are presented as presidents, leaders, politicians, intellectuals, soldiers, etc. That is it, and it is a sad reality out there in South Africa. Black Africans should also know that Africans don't need Europeans and Americans to survive, but Europeans need Africans to survive, as 70% of the world resources are concentrated in Africa. So, when will Black people, especially Black Africans, grow up and stop jubilating over little and meaningless things? What do Black Africans really live for and what is their goal on this planet? The meeting between Trump and Cyril Ramaphosa was just another proof that the African so-called presidents or leaders are nothing but sheep and puppets that don't have compass, leadership skill, and visions. They continuously and shamelessly embarrass themselves in the front of the world, and doing so they have made Africa the laughingstock for the world. How is it possible that the European colonizers in South Africa or the so-called Afrikaners, who represent less than 10% of the population there, can get important ministerial posts and have many seats in the South African parliament? How come these Afrikaners continue to own 80% of the agricultural lands and continue to control almost 100% of South African economy? At a time when the American government have been deporting hundreds of thousands of Black Africans back to Africa, one expected Cyril Ramaphosa to seize at least this opportunity to tell Donald Trump that he also was going to expel the Afrikaners from South Africa because they are colonizers who have been living illegally in his country, or to tell Donald Trump that the American government must stop oppressing and exterminating Black Americans. Unfortunately, the big raccoon Cyril Ramaphosa didn't say anything like that. From the old raccoon Nelson Mandela to the young big raccoon Cyril Ramaphosa, South Africa have not advanced 1 inch, but it has been regressing a mile a day. The living conditions of black South Africans have never got better since the so-called end of apartheid in South Africa, because the so-called black South African leaders, politicians, soldiers, intellectuals, and some ordinary individuals have been collaborating with these Afrikaners and Europeans to the detriments of their fellow black Africans. Black South Africans, as well as other black people throughout the African continent, must see their leaders for what they are, and they must accept the reality the way it is if they aspire to live with dignity like everybody on this planet, or if they want at least to be respected by people of other races. Black Africans must wake up and rise up against all oppressors and barriers. More importantly, black Africans must take their destiny into their own hands if they want to survive and prosper like anybody. When did victims desperately ask their oppressors to come save them, or when did victims ask their oppressors to come rescue them from the oppression, criminality, and barbarism the oppressors brought on them? Please tell me. In the 21st century, if black Africans are still unable to dictate their rules to others, take their destiny into their own hands, impose respect on others, or assert themselves in the world full of vampires, when are they going to do it? It is high time black Africans rose up and got rid of all their puppets, so-called leaders, politicians, soldiers, intellectuals, and inside traders before it is too late.
President Cyril Ramaphosa saying, of course, that the recent trip to Washington was a success, and the U.S. president using the meeting to amplify discredited claims of a white genocide in South Africa, while Ramaphosa was criticized by some for not forcefully refuting Trump's allegations. His composed demeanor and diplomatic poise has been seen by some as a good move, particularly for what could have taken place behind closed doors. Let's now speak to Dr. who is a Pan-Africanist as well as a former African Union ambassador to the U.S. Doctor, good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. It's been described by some, including President Ramaphosa, as a successful meeting, while others say it was, in fact, cringeworthy. How would you describe the encounter in the Oval Office?
Well, I think it was a step in the right direction for President Trump to invite President Ramaphosa to come to the White House to discuss issues to do with trade, first and foremost. The other issues that were discussed pertaining to the genocide, I'm hoping that they were secondary to the primary reason why he went to Washington with his team. On a separate note, I view this trip and the treatment that President Ramaphosa received from the U.S. government as a perfect example and a reminder to the African leaders that this is a new day, that this is a new game, that they need to re-strategize the manner in which diplomacy used to be handled. That game is over. This is a new game and it needs new strategy. The manner in which they were treated is a reminder to the African leaders that before you go to meet with President Trump, with other Western leaders, you better make sure that you have a team that is prepared, a team that knows their game, from the political to the social to the economic to trade. I just feel that the team that was with President Ramaphosa was not prepared for what they received in Washington. They could have done better. There were white people in the team who could have refuted what the information that President Trump had been given. When they showed the photographs of all those crosses along the road, who creates a grave site along a highway with these crosses so close to each other? By virtue of looking at it, that was not a grave site. And yet, the people who were traveling with President Trump, one opportunity after another, they failed to refute the false information. They failed to protect the president. They failed to clarify the issues of genocide to the American viewers who saw lies being told, misinformation being shared. The people, the team that traveled with President Ramaphosa did not perform well. And if they should have another opportunity to meet with President Trump, we expect them to do better. We expect them to be more prepared. And let this be an example and also something that the other African leaders can look to and say, should we have an opportunity to meet with President Trump, they need to be better prepared. They need to assemble their best negotiators, because for President Trump, it's about negotiations. May the best men win.
I want to get to circle back to what you've just said about being better prepared, and at the same time a message to African leaders in just a moment. But you speak about some of the members in the delegation. They spoke a lot about crime. At the same time, they're calling on the US to expand its investment in South Africa. Does speaking about crime, and even the fact that how violent of a society they say we are, does this not deter potential investment into the country?
Absolutely. If you talk about crime, why did they go there to highlight the issues of crime in South Africa? If that was the case, why didn't the team also highlight the issues of crime in the United States of America? Why was that not also discussed? Why is it that we can only highlight crime in Africa and not the crime in the United States of America? There's a lot of crime in the United States, but that was not the reason for the visit. The agenda should have been very clear. There was some digression here where issues that were not part of the agenda were discussed. President Ramaphosa came to the United States to discuss trade and also to justify and refute the false information about genocide in South Africa.
Mr. President, this time, what would it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I can answer that for President. It's for him. No, seriously.
I'd rather have him answer.
Yeah, I'd rather answer that. It will be.
Our president will respond to you.
Yeah, let me,
Thank you, Mr. President.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us on around a quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them. I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that we have, wait. We have thousands of stories talking about it.
Sure.
And we have documentaries, we have news stories. And that, is Natalie here, somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things, and it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would. And turn the lights down. Turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. South Africa occupy land. That's who we are. So whatever you want to do, we can withdraw my membership from this useless parliament. Yes, Honorable Member.
Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot to kill the mother, kill the poor.
We're all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No. I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen. But okay.
I mean, it's in South Africa. That's where.
We need to find out. Clarify that.
Yeah.
Let me clarify that, because what you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
and
take
then when
land.
they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them. So why did they give us a plane to the United States Air Force? That's what that idiot talks about after viewing a thing where thousands of people are dead.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did. I'd take it. I would take it. If your country offered the United States Air Force a plane, I would take it.
Okay. But coming back to this issue, which I really would like us to talk about, and talk about it very calmly. We were taught by Nelson Mandela that whenever there are problems, people need to sit down around a table and talk about them.
Well, there are problems.
And this is precisely what we would also like to talk about, including, of course, trade matters, investment matters. So,
Are there any other further punitive measures that could be in place should you not be satisfied that South Africa is fixing some of the very bad things, in inverted commas, that you tweeted are happening?
Well, there are a lot of bad things happening in many countries, but this in particular has been very, very bad, very bad. And because of we're going to have the whole world watching in another short period of time, because you have the G20, and that's a big deal. And it seems like, I want you to look good. I don't want you to look bad.
very good.
But we have hundreds of people, thousands of people trying to come into our country because they feel they're going to be killed and their land is going to be confiscated. And you do have laws that were passed that gives you the right to confiscate land for no payment. You can take away land for no payment.
I want to clarify that, because we have a constitution. Our constitution guarantees and protects the sanctity of tenure of land ownership. And that constitution protects all South Africans with regard to land ownership. However, we do say, because we've got to deal with the past, the government, and as your government also has the right to expropriate land for public use.
And you're doing that.
And we've never really gotten underway with that. And we are going to be doing so.
You're taking people's land away
we have not.
from them. Now, I will say, apartheid, terrible. That was the biggest threat. That was reported all the time. This is sort of the opposite of apartheid. What's happening now is never reported. Nobody knows about it. All we know is we're being inundated with people, with white farmers from South Africa. And it's a big problem. Marco Rubio was telling me he's never seen anything like it. The numbers of people that want to leave South Africa because they feel they're going to be dead very soon.